Let me show you how to create a simple dashboard in Excel. You'll see the example I've got here is showing information by slicer and by graph and by a timeline. And I think the key to creating a dashboard is to think about the information that you do want to show before you start designing it. So this information here actually has come from a data sheet here that is simply listing in date order orders of products, sales value, who sold it and who the customer is. So this information here I've turned into a dashboard. And you'll see visually it's more interesting to look at with a bit of colour. It's also interactive. So for example, if I want to have a closer look at a sales rep, I can sort of drill down and you'll see that the other information changes. This sales rep selling to this customer, selling these products, and there's over so many years. So you could be having a look at the sales rep, or maybe you want to look at the customers instead and have a closer look, again using the slicer, again with the category. You see everything's changing as I'm just clicking on my slicer. The graphs are dynamically changing. I've got a timeline up here as well. I may want to focus in by month, and again I can just click on the timeline and it's showing us what's happening month by month, or it could be year by year. So let me show you how I did this. So the first thing I want to do is to insert a couple of pivot tables. I'm going to go up to Insert and then Pivot Table. I'll keep it as a new worksheet. I'll keep my tables on a separate sheet, that's fine. And now I'm ready to create my first pivot table. The first one I want for my dashboard is looking at sales reps. So I'll drag the sales rep down into the row field and the sales revenue down. And this is a summary of the sales revenue over the 3-year period. Not too happy with the format at the moment. I don't know why it's got row labels here rather than the field name of sales rep. The quickest way to change this is to change the way the report looks. So back up to Design, and then we're going to go to Report Layout. If I change that to tabular form, you'll see there that I've got the correct field heading there. When I go to Sum of Sales Revenue, I'm just going to actually bring back my formula bar. I just want to overtype that and I'll just change that to Total Sales Revenue. And I want to format the numbers here into currency. In a pivot table, right click, Value Field Settings, Number Format, Currency. We'll take off the decimal places, click on OK, OK again, and that's my first pivot table. Now I want a few more pivot tables showing, certainly the slicers and graphs showing in my dashboard. So I think, personally, the quickest way to do it, I'm just going to copy and paste this particular pivot table and then make the changes after. Doesn't matter where you go, I'll just go to column D, I'm going to paste. I'll choose this one here, which is keep source column widths, and that will save me faffing around having to widen or narrow columns. That one's fine. I'll just do the same again, and then a fourth time. So they're all standardized, and now I can just go back and make changes to the second, third and fourth tables. So the second table, I will replace sales rep, just drag it back up, and instead drag down the category field. For the third one, same again. This time I will replace with the customer, and for the final one I'm looking for the order date. I can see with the fourth one it's actually giving me quarters, so it's looking at the sales revenue by quarter. I don't want that for my dashboard. I actually want it to be months, and it's really easily sorted out. Just go up to Pivot Table Analyze, and then if we look at the group selection, I will deselect quarters and click on OK, and you'll see it's now giving me the months this is what I want, but I will just collapse it back down again so that we're just back to the years. So now I've got my 4 pivot tables. The next thing I'm needing are slicers based on these tables, based on the field headings actually that I've got. So if I just go into any of the pivot tables, pivot table analyze, click on insert slicer, it'll give me the options of all the fields I've got in my data sheet. For my dashboard, I want sales rep, customer name, and category. Just these 3. They've come here, and I'm just going to move them out of the way for the time being. You'll notice actually with the slicers, when you're in a slicer, you've got options with regards to sort of design and formatting, etc. So that's me got my slicers, and I do want a timeline as well. So again, any pivot table analyze, insert timeline. The only field that can be set up as a timeline is of course the order date, so I'll bring that one up. So now I'm building up some of the information that I want for my dashboard. And the third thing I want to do is to bring up some pivot graphs. So I'm going to go, first of all, I'll go into the sales rep pivot table. You can either go to insert and get your pivot chart that way, or pivot table analyze and get it that way. So I'll click on pivot chart. I'll use a bar chart for this one actually. Click on OK, and I'll just move that down. Now you'll notice with pivot charts, it's really helpful actually. You can drill down, you can filter down. We don't need this for the dashboard because we can use our slicers for the dashboard. So I want to remove this. Just right click, and if I hide all buttons on chart, then it's taken away. I don't need the series, it's self-explanatory, but I can give it a title. Let's just call it revenue for sales reps. And there is my first graph. Now what I'm going to do now is just create another 2 graphs, one for category and one for customer name. So now you'll see I've got 3 pivot charts ready for the dashboard. There's one more actually I think I'm going to put in here, and that is a line graph showing the trend across the 3 years. So I'm just going to go into, again, table analyze, the chart. I'll choose the a line graph, and OK, and again I'm saying just hover over the filter section there, just hide all the buttons, remove the series, and I'll call this 3-year revenue comparison. Alright, so now we've got actually 4 charts that we can use in the pivot table. So now we're ready to go. Now one thing just to show you before we start is you can use any of this information in the dashboard, but what we do have to do is make sure that everything is linked. If you remember the example I first gave you, we were able to go into a sales rep and it would automatically change the pivot charts for the other fields there. So what I have to do is make sure everything is linked. And the way to do that is just to click on the first pivot table, go up to pivot table analyze, go to filter connections, and then decide how you want everything to link together. So for my example, for all my tables and my graphs, I want everything to link to everything. You might not want that, but I've just gone through every one and gone to filter connections. So now we can start designing the dashboard, and I'm just going to create a new sheet, just a blank worksheet. There's nothing special here, but at this point now we're thinking about how we can design the dashboard. So the first thing I can do is give it a heading. I'm going to slightly increase the row height in row 1. I'll put some colour in. Let's just call this sales data dashboard or something like that. Let's change the font, just the basic formatting, to bold, and we will increase the font size there. So there's the heading, and now all we need to do is just start bringing across the information that we want. Now, one thing I would say is you can use any of this information in your dashboard. It is all linked together. The drawback to copying and pasting your actual pivot tables in is that once you do put them in, you have to kind of decide exactly where you want it to go, which is fine. So you have to think, which row, which column. However, if we're just bringing in, so for this dashboard, if I want to bring in first of all the, let's say, it doesn't really matter, the sales rep, for example, then I can just copy that in, paste it in here, and of course I can move it all around, and same with the graphs and the timeline. So it's really up to yourself what information you want to bring in, but for my example I just want to start bringing in the slicers and the graphs. Okay, and move it around, go back, and so on. You'll see how I'm building this up, just copying and pasting, or Control C, Control V, and bringing the information in and adjusting it to where I want. So say for example here, I want the graph to go here, so I would have to just go into the pivot table and I'd have to move it somewhere else in order for me to fit my graph in. So what you want to do now is just to build up the dashboard. Don't worry too much if you have to go sort of scroll down to get to information. I'll just show you in a moment or two how we can start taking away some of this extra information shown in the ribbon. So now I brought across my slicers and my pivot charts and my timeline across into my dashboard. You'll notice the graphs look a bit different to what I showed you earlier. Haven't done much here, just clicked on it, went up to design and just changed the chart style, as you can with changing colours or maybe making changes to the layout. And in terms of the bars here, different colours, that was just by going into format. And as you know, there's an awful lot you can do to enhance a graph using design and format. So that's all I did. So everything is here, doesn't quite fit on one page, which is a bit annoying, and also it still looks quite spreadsheet looking like. So I want to sort of take away the ribbon and the row and column headings and the grid lines and such like. So the first thing to do is I'll just take away the row and column headings. Just go to View and let me just untick grid lines and untick headings. You'll see the background is now white, which is absolutely fine. I don't need the formula bar either. I'll just take that one off. If you want to put in a background colour, you could go to Page Layout and find a background. If you have one from a file, that's fine. I'll just demonstrate here from the online pictures with a background and just find something that might work for my particular dashboard and insert it. And now you'll see it's really now taking the shape of the dashboard that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation. And the last thing actually is let's get rid of all the ribbon at the top. Just go up to the top right hand corner, Ribbon Display Options, click on it, auto hide the ribbon, and now you'll see that the dashboard is as good as complete. Because I've just used movable options here, then I could at this stage just maybe slightly maneuver things around to perhaps better fit the screen. So that is how you can create a very simple dashboard.